What's up YouTube? Cliff here from the Sunday Drive. Today we're going to be installing a 32-inch light bar behind the grille in my 2014 Silverado so that it looks like this. So we're going to be installing this 32-inch quad beam light bar by Auxbeam behind the grille in my Silverado. Very sturdy, feels very well made. Obviously we'll see how it holds up over time, but my initial impressions, I'm definitely liking it. And it includes these mounting brackets right here. You can also purchase additional mounting brackets that'll hook up to this in different configurations depending upon your need, but we're going to be using these. You can also purchase an additional wiring harness that'll include all the wires that you need to hook up the light bar to your vehicle. I'm also going to be hooking up this light bar to my high beams, so I'm going to be changing out the switch on this to be an on-off-on switch so that I can operate it with the high beams and independently, and we'll show you guys how to do that. If you guys are interested in any of the products that you see in this video, follow the links in the description to pick up your own, and we'll also have a discount code down there to help save you a little bit of money. All right, let's get this installed. As you can see, we've already removed the grill and we're not gonna show you how to do it. Just kidding. If you guys need to know how to remove your grill, watch the link above and we have a full guide showing how to remove not only your grill, but your headlights and your bumper too. So if you take your included mounting hardware and set the light right in here on top of this bottom plastic, this is very rigid and it is safe to mount to that. However, as you can see here, it sits a little lower than I would like. So we're gonna be installing some spacers between the bottom of this bracket and this plastic right here to raise it up a little bit. I've also seen the light bar mounted to this cross member right here using either clamps that go around the bars or drilling into the bars themselves. However, mounting it down here sets it right at the height I want it, and it's a lot easier than trying to find or custom make brackets to go around this cross member. You can also use these holes right here to mount a plate behind here and then run a custom bracket over to this area. Rough Country actually sells a kit like that. But again, you're purchasing extra hardware that you don't really need to when you can just mount it right down here. For lining your light bar up, look right next to this nub right here. And there's a hole right here that you can fit your finger in, and you can get a washer in there. We've already tested it out. So the light bar happens to line up perfectly with the hole on this side as well as the one on the other side. The first thing we're going to go ahead and do is mark the holes that we're going to drill in this bottom valance with a pick tool. So from the front of this lip to the edge of the bracket, you want a 1/2 inch. And then go ahead and mark dead center. And that's where you're going to drill out your hole. First, start off with a small drill bit like this. Once you're happy with where the hole is, step it up to a 5/16 drill bit. So right on top of this black valance, this shroud right here rests on top of it so that this doesn't sit flush. We're gonna cut a little bit of this away so that this will sit flush on this piece of plastic right here. So you're just gonna wanna follow this line right along here and then go far enough over that you clear the base. To raise up the light bar, what we went ahead and did and just ran next door and picked up some washers from Napa Auto Parts. We're raising it up just over 1/4 inch. So we're gonna be sticking these 4 washers. This one's a little bit thinner. These 3 together come to 1/4 inch, and this last one brings it just over 1/4 inch. Now obviously if you want to, you could go ahead and buy 1/4 inch thick steel and stick an extra washer on top of that. But these will work just as well. And they're quick in a pinch. The lighting hardware also comes with these rubber spacers. Because we're raising the light bar up, I had to pick up a little bit longer of a bolt than the one that's included with the kit. This is a 1.5 inch M8 1.25 bolt. Go ahead and take the included washer and nut and put them on the bottom of the bolt. It's a good idea to use some Loctite, or if you don't have any Loctite, get a nylon threaded washer to make sure that this doesn't fall off. Go ahead and take a 6mm hex driver and a 13mm wrench. Slip the 13mm wrench over the nut. You're gonna need a wrench that has a pretty small end to fit inside underneath. Now you don't want to tighten these too much because you are tightening down on plastic. You don't want to crack the plastic. Yeah, that's tight. It's not going anywhere. So we're going to do a quick overview of what comes with the Auxbeam wiring harness. So let's step through that. At this end, we have 2 quick connects that connect up to your light bar. As we follow along, we come to a relay and then an inline fuse. And this can connect up to your power source. And we have a grounding connection right here. And then we have a quick disconnect for the on-off switch, which will get mounted inside the vehicle. Now I'm going to be removing this and replacing it with a different switch so that I can also wire into my high beams, and we'll be showing you guys how to do that as well. When you install the light bar, it can be installed either with the wiring coming off towards the passenger side or the driver's side. Initially, I was planning to have it come off towards the driver's side because the grommet I'm going to go through the Firewall is on that side. However, I need to connect this to my battery, and that is on the passenger side. So we've positioned it so that the wiring harness is coming off of the passenger side, and we're feeding it up next to the condenser and through this pre-existing hole right here. So we have the wire fed up right through here, and now we're going to connect it up to our Auxbeam wiring harness. That's going to connect to our battery right here. Here's the relay and the inline fuse to power. And then we're going to go all the way over to here and run it through the grommet into the cabin. So we're going to go ahead and remove this bar, completely unnecessary. I'm just being difficult, and I want to put my grounding wire and my relay mounted to the side of my fender right here, and this bar is in the way of my drill, so we're taking it out. It's held in by 13mm bolts, and the nut end is welded onto the bar. I'm going to go ahead and pre-drill a hole right here. You can already see that it's marked. And the reason I'm going to this is because I want to mount both the relay and the grounding wire to the same place. I couldn't really find any bolts that were the right size for the grounding wire they gave, and there was really no convenient location, so we're going to go with this one right here. All right, we went ahead and installed the relay and the grounding wire right here to this self-tapping screw. You want to make sure that the grounding wire is touching the screw, as this will be its ground connection to the frame of the truck. We're going to go ahead and loosen up the positive terminal right here. All right, just enough so that we can slide the connection through. All right, with that loose, we're going to go ahead and slide the red connection from your wiring harness onto your positive terminal of the battery. Go ahead and tighten that back down. Now before taking the effort to run this into the cabin and closing your truck all back up, make sure that you check your light bar. So we've just done a quick connection between the light bar and the wiring harness, and that's hooked up to my battery, so looks like it works. Let's finish installing it. All right, we added some spade connectors to the end of the wiring coming from the light bar. I just put a little bit of heat shrink on there. We're gonna just shrink that down. Go ahead and install the black into black and red into red. Now if you have the time and the equipment, definitely better to solder these connections, but we're working with what we got. All right, I'm gonna run my wires underneath the airbox to follow the factory harness and keep the installation as clean as possible. To remove the airbox, there are 4 8mm screws, 1 in each corner of the airbox, and there's another 8mm right here that you're gonna have to loosen so that you can remove this hose, and then just disconnect your MAF sensor. And then you can just pull straight up on the lower portion of the airbox, just held in by grommets, and it'll pop right out. All right, I just finished running the wires, so you can see I just followed the factory harness right along here underneath the airbox. And then right here, I just bundled all the excess wires and zip tied them right to the fender, right next to my relay right here and my grounding wire. And then the power is right to the battery. And now we just gotta run the actual switch across the back of the engine bay following that wiring harness and into the cabin. To get the wire inside your cabin, we're gonna first remove this panel right here. You can grab it at the bottom and pull out. You can take a plastic trim removal tool and just work your way up here. That's held in by a lot of metal clips. So they're going to take a little bit of force to get off, but it will come off. And look at that, GM has some nice spare fuses right in there for you. Thanks, GM. So right between your door and your door jamb is a grommet. That's the grommet we're going to go through right here. It's going to be kind of hard to see in there. Right down here to the right of your brake booster is another grommet you can go through. This one, we tried to go through it originally. It was kind of difficult. There's a little nub that points out and you're supposed to poke a hole through that and then feed it into your cabin through there, but it's really hard to get up to that area from inside the truck. So we're gonna go through the one between the fender and the door. All right, we're gonna pop this grommet out right here using a trim removal tool. Also, just so you're aware, this same grommet exists over on the passenger side. Now, because the battery is over on the passenger side, there isn't much slack left to this button. So this connection is actually going to stay inside the engine bay. I'm going to disconnect that real quick. Just press down on that tab, it comes out. Now what I'm going to do so I don't have to cut a massive hole into the grommet is actually remove the 3 pins that hold the wires into this quick connection right here. If you look inside the connection, you'll see that there are prongs that stick off of each pin. If you take a small flathead screwdriver and press those prongs in, you'll be able to release the wires. Obviously, when you reinstall these, make sure they go in the same orientation. These are the prongs right here. I just pressed those in with this, and I was then able to push them out of the quick connection. That was terrifying. That's my long fishing line. My truck did not come with the integrated brake controller from the factory, so I have this opening right here. There's a little rubber like boot type thing in here that holds your change or whatever. You can pull that out, and then if you look at the back, there's a hole in there, so that's where I'm going to try to feed the wire through. It's really easy just to pop this whole cover right off. So the whole thing comes as one unit. Just be careful and don't break any clips. Just work at it slowly. All right. And something interesting to note, they still have the wires run right here for the integrated brake controller, even though my truck doesn't have it. So if you ever want to retrofit that, the wires are already here. But we're doing a light bar today. Now that we have the quick connection removed from these wires, I'm going to go ahead and feed them through that opening at the bottom of that hole. Now, if you have the integrated brake controller, there's a lot of places you can feed your button. I just happen to have this right here, so it's pretty convenient. We're going to take a bent clothes hanger and tape our connections to that so that we can fish it through, and also just to protect the ends to make sure that they don't get caught in anything while we're fishing. And we're going to feed it through this top hole right here. All right, now we can go ahead and pop this back in place. And this still wiggles in and out, so the wire is not being bound up on anything. If you go down here by your e-brake and look up to where we removed the grommet from, you can actually see a straight shot up there. You can see daylight coming through it, so it's really clear where you need to feed the wire through. What I'm going to do first is feed the wire down to that area and then feed it back up once I have that clear shot to the hole. So again, with it still attached to my fishing line, I'm just going to feed that straight down. Just make sure you're keeping it out of the way of all the pedals and such. Now that I have it run down to this area, I'm going to run this same wire up and out through the grommet. So we've got it fed up through here. All right, I went ahead and poked a hole in the grommet, and before reinstalling the quick connect, I fished each one of these lines through, so it's a nice tight seal on this line. You shouldn't have to worry about any water getting into your cabin. And I'm going to go ahead and reinstall that. Again, you guys aren't going to be able to see because it's really tight in there. Then we're going to fish this into the engine bay. Now, we've run this wire as efficiently as possible to give us as much slack to get into the engine bay as we can, but this wire is pretty short. If you feed it exactly the way I showed you guys to, you will have just barely enough length to connect to it. It's not a problem of the wire inside the engine bay being too short, but this wire is just barely long enough to get it to where you can actually reach your hands and connect the two connections together. If you guys have extra wire, I would definitely suggest cutting this wire and soldering some additional length onto here, or just completely remove the quick connections and just run a solid line all the way in to your switch. So as you can see, this barely got far enough for me to be able to connect that connection. And I had to be careful not to drop it down inside here or it'd be difficult to get back up. If I was doing this myself, I'd probably hardwire this connection, but I wanted to show you guys how to do it for this video using the connections provided. As you guys can see, the light bar fits perfectly behind the Silverado grill, so if you guys are gonna get one for your truck, definitely recommend going with the 32-inch. It looks like it was meant to come with the truck. If you guys are interested in purchasing the light bar, see the link in the description below, and we will also have a discount code down there so you guys can save a little bit of money. In a follow-up video, I'm going to show you guys how to change the switch to an on-off-on switch so you can operate it independently and also have it hook up to your high beams.